Tonight, dealing with a deadly problem. San Diego's opioid deaths are at an all-time high. The work happening this week to bring that number down. SeaWorld struggled to keep the turnstiles moving. New numbers reveal a tough summer for business at the company's San Diego park.
He wants to hold Poway hostage and try to force us to change the zoning, but we're not interested in that, as demonstrated by the vote last night.
The results are in, and now workers are out of a job. The consequences after Poway's vote on the Stone Ridge Country Club.
It was like a war zone without bullets. People were desperate. People had no clean water, no food.
Helping Puerto Rico after the hurricane. The California nurses who were the first signs of aid weeks after the storm. KPBS Evening Edition starts right now. Good evening and thanks for joining us. I'm Ebony Monet. The opioid crisis is in San Diego this week as some of the state's top experts are in town. They're trying to come up with a new strategy. While California is doing better than other states, it's still a major problem. As KPBS health reporter Kenny Goldberg reports, local overdose deaths are hitting a new high.
California has the nation's 7th lowest rate of drug overdoses. Even so, more people die of a drug overdose each year in California than in any other state. Dr. Karen Smith directs the California Department of Public Health. She says the state has recently seen a decline in drug-related deaths and ER admissions, but there's been a steep increase in heroin and fentanyl-related deaths.
As we restrict the availability or, educate physicians around safe use of opioids, people who are already addicted have access to relatively available, very inexpensive, very dangerous drugs like heroin and fentanyl.
County health officials say at least 37 San Diegans have died from a fentanyl-related overdose so far this year. That's an all-time record. Kenny Goldberg, KPBS News.
Voters in Poway sent a resounding no to a developer who wants to build condos on part of the Stone Ridge golf course. KPBS North County reporter Allison St. John says the developer immediately responded by shutting down the course.
A handwritten sign posted this morning at the entrance to the Stone Ridge Country Club said, "Goodbye, Poway. It was a great 60 years. Employees were already loading boxes and preparations were being made to lock the front gates. Measure A would have allowed the 18-hole course to be redesigned, but changed the zoning on part of it to allow 180 condos for seniors to be built. But 62% of Poway voters rejected the plan. Brian Edmonston is a spokesman for the No on A campaign.
Do you feel like you've won?
No, I think everybody was the loser here, but we all lost the day Michael Schlesinger bought this course, and we were lucky to have the years of use that we did after that. But it was doomed from the minute he purchased the banknote.
Edmonston says distrust of the developer was a factor in the defeat.
He wants to hold Poway hostage and try to force us to change the zoning, but we're not interested in that, as demonstrated by the vote last night.
Michael Schlesinger is an investor who has bought several golf courses around Southern California, including the Escondido Country Club, which he also closed down when voters refused to approve his plans. Schlesinger put out a statement on the defeat of Poway's Measure A. "This is now out of our hands. When the city and community appears with a viable solution, we'll listen. Until then, the entire facility will be locked up and fenced for the foreseeable future. The golf course will vanish and the city will suffer economic and property value loss from this black hole in the community." The developer will have to work with the community to find a solution since, unlike the Escondido course, Poway's course is zoned as open space, and that cannot be changed without a vote of the residents. Allison St. John, KPBS News.
Across the nation, diversity may have been the story of the night. In Virginia, the first openly transgender candidate was elected to the State House. Hoboken, New Jersey elected its first Sikh mayor, and voters in Montana elected the state's first African-American mayor in Helena. Democrats are also cheering the election of Ralph Northam for governor of Virginia. He beat Republican Ed Gillespie, who was endorsed by President Donald Trump. Today, Northam held his first press conference as governor-elect with a focus on the future.
I think it's a sign for Virginia and an opportunity for Virginia that we come together and that we unite. And we will, I think, always agree that it's okay to disagree. And I'm going to set the bar high. I know people look at me and say, Ralph, you're a nice person, and I am a nice person, but I expect a lot, and Virginians expect a lot.
Tonight also marks 1 year since the election of President Trump. Coming up on PBS NewsHour, a look back at the past year and what Tuesday's election results could mean for the midterms in 2018. Just days after another mass shooting, California Senator Dianne Feinstein is leading a push to ban assault weapons. The bill includes more than 20 co-sponsors, all Democrats. It calls for a ban on sales of more than 200 military-style assault weapons. It would also ban magazines that would hold more than 10 rounds of ammunition and bump stock devices, like the one used in the Las Vegas shooting. Current owners of weapons that would fall under the ban would be allowed to keep them. More state funding will help the San Diego District Attorney's Office prosecute drunk driving cases. The $250,000 grant from the State Office of Traffic Safety will also be used for DUI prevention programs in schools and military bases. Last year, the DA's office worked on more than 10,000 DUI-related cases throughout the county. The trend continues with more than 55% of all DUI alcohol cases involving a blood alcohol content of more than 0.15%. Warning signs are back up in Imperial Beach due to another sewage spill. Stormwater runoff through the Tijuana River ended up in the ocean, making the water unhealthy for swimmers. The closure runs from the border to Seacoast Drive in Imperial Beach. The San Diego County of Environmental Health will monitor the water quality and announce when the water is safe. It was a rough summer for SeaWorld. Overall attendance and revenue is down, and the company says its San Diego park is a big reason why. KPBS editor Tom Fudge has the story.
SeaWorld says in the third quarter, both its attendance and revenues were down about 10%. 721,000 fewer people came to SeaWorld parks compared to the same period last year. It's become a familiar story as the company has seen dropping attendance for the past 3 years. This year's third quarter losses were partly due to major hurricanes that temporarily shut down SeaWorld's Florida parks, but executives admit that public perception of SeaWorld has reduced sales in San Diego and elsewhere. Company CEO Joel Manby said SeaWorld will address that with its new national ad campaign, From Park to Planet.
That is specifically designed to address perception issues by conveying SeaWorld's commitment to helping to protect and save the planet's animals and oceans.
The ad campaign will be costly, but Manby said cost-cutting in other areas will make it possible. Last month, SeaWorld announced it would cut 350 jobs. Tom Fudge, KPBS News.
California regulators have committed to a 10-year plan to deal with the shrinking Salton Sea. KPBS environment reporter Eric Anderson says the plan is an important step, but there are a lot of open questions.
State officials promised to spend $400 million over the next decade to preserve bird habitat and to cover exposed lake bed with shallow water so toxic dust stays out of the air. But there still are huge questions about the viability of the project. The first is money. California has only committed to spending $80 million on the sea. Another $200 million could come from a water bond that still needs voter approval. And the strategy for covering exposed lake bed has yet to be proven. The demonstration project to flood 400 acres of a dusty lake bed is a year overdue, and it remains untested. The restoration plan depends on that technique to cover about half of the lake bed that's expected to be exposed in the next decade. Salton Sea could begin retreating quickly next year when mitigation water stops flowing into the lake. The mitigation is part of that landmark water deal that allowed the Imperial Valley to sell Colorado River water to San Diego. The deal called for the water to flow into the lake for 10 years to give the state time to come up with a restoration plan. That 10 years expires in December. Eric Anderson, KPBS News.
When it comes to the health of our coast, scientists say the birds tell the story. Volunteers working with the University of Washington are tracking dead seabirds. As Krista Fourier reports, their work is giving researchers the data they need.
Every month, these bird watchers walk along the beach, but instead of looking up, they concentrate on the ground.
Oh, look, a dead bird. It's a common murre. The breast has been eaten. Yeah. It makes great dinner conversation. Did I tell you about my latest dead bird?
The volunteers are members of the Coastal Observation and Seabird Survey Team, a program out of the University of Washington. For nearly 2 decades, hundreds of citizen scientists have collected, measured, and recorded the carcasses that have washed ashore from California to Alaska.
2 wings. 2 feet, no eyeballs.
The data is used to track seasonal and long-term changes in seabirds.
Really, most fun thing about running a long-term citizen science program where you have a really big data set in space and time is that it's open science. You can share it with everybody and help people to ask and answer their questions, whether they're scientists or they're coastal residents.
Since 1998, the COAST program has recorded nearly 76,000 dead birds. Researchers began seeing a spike in mortality about 4 years ago.
That was the largest, most intense marine heat wave the world has ever seen.
A warming of water the size of Canada, called the blob, affected food chains, spurred a toxic algae bloom, and disrupted migratory cues. Now there is a die-off in Alaska and Russia, and while the reasons aren't clear yet, the dead birds illustrate how global warming could impact cold environments.
It's not only going to change the phytoplankton and the zooplankton and the seabirds and the marine mammals, who some people would say, well, that's nice, but why do we care about that? It's going to change the commercial fish.
How much? 47.
With wide-scale implications, these volunteers know even small actions can make a difference.
If somebody were to ask you in the future, what did you do to help the environment? That we can say we counted dead birds every month.
A way to help their community and scientists better understand the health of the coastal environment. Krista Fourier, Associated Press.
California Governor Jerry Brown's European tour continued today with a stop in Belgium. He's there to discuss the Paris Climate Accord with members of the European Parliament. Climate change and how California can work with global leaders to address the issue has been the focus of the governor's trip. Dry, sunny days as we get closer to the Veterans Day weekend. Erin Calandra is tracking the weather and has tonight's forecast.
We're seeing a lot more sunshine here in San Diego County than we did yesterday. Could see some very light showers in some places, but for the most part, it's going to be a nice day across the county. A couple of clouds still lingering, but again, we do have improvement. To the north, we have some storms. We're going to see some heavy rain, even snow in the mountains. None of that is reaching us here in Southern California, so it's going to be very mild and very calm the next couple of days. 61 degrees tonight for our overnight low with partly cloudy skies. Oceanside 53, Poway 57, Chula Vista 60, and Mount Laguna coming in at 43 degrees. On Thursday, it's going to be nice, warmer conditions. We have this warm air coming in out of the south. It's going to be dry as well. To the north of us, again, it's going to be cooler and wet. Luckily, that's not reaching us. So here we are with our highs. Oceanside 72, San Diego 71, Chula Vista Same story, 71 degrees. Ramona, 72 degrees. And in Borrego Springs, it's going to be beautiful, sunny, 83 degrees. Along the coast, the next couple of days, not much going on. It's going to stay sunny, maybe a few clouds at times, and temperatures holding steady in those low 70s. Inland, we're in those mid to low 70s again across the board for the next few days, mostly sunny skies. And in the mountains, that's where it's always a bit cooler. Temperatures in those upper 50s to low 60s. Everyone is staying dry and sunny. And here we are in the deserts. That's the place to be if you like those warmer temperatures. We're holding steady in those lower to mid 80s. And again, it's going to be sunny and gorgeous. For KPBS News, I'm Erin Calandra.
I'm Judy Woodruff. On the next News Hour, join Miles O'Brien as he explores how Cuba seeks to cash in on its diverse wildlife through ecotourism. That's Wednesday on the PBS News Hour.
Ride-hailing service Uber is promising flying cars by 2020 over the skies of Southern California. This is promotional video for the Uber Air service. The company announced today its plans for electric air taxis that will conduct thousands of flights each day. The price is expected to be similar to the Uber X service. LA and Dallas will be the first cities. Last month's wildfires in Northern California hit wine country especially hard. You can also say the same for cannabis growers. The Cannabis Growers Association says nearly 100 licensed farms were damaged or destroyed. Those businesses were getting ready for the legalization of recreational marijuana in January. Damage is estimated at $60 million, and none of it is backed up. Marijuana growers do not qualify for crop insurance or federal disaster relief. Nearly 2 months after Hurricane Maria hit Puerto Rico, roughly 70% of the U.S. territory remains without power. The Registered Nurse Response Network sent 50 volunteer nurses on a 2-week relief mission. KQED's Thuy Vu talks to nurses Sandy Killen and Randy Litton back in California. They share what they saw and why people are still desperate for assistance.
Thuy, it was devastation. Literally, it was like a war zone without bullets. People were desperate. People had no clean water, no food. We encountered individuals who had been injured during the hurricane, shoulder dislocations, had no ability to get, in terms of access, transportation, roads were closed. They had, if they were able to get to a location, x-rays were down. People were, as I said, were just desperate for basic supplies, basic needs, and of course medical care and medicine. They were out of medications.
And Randy, so you first arrived about 2 weeks after the hurricane hit, and these were the conditions you still saw. Were you actually the first responders that many of these people saw?
Oh yeah. I mean, I just hearing Sandy talk is bringing me back to every single moment that we would go out to these villages, these towns, these barrios. I personally went out with 2 groups every day, and we would try and at least go to 2 different towns on the island. And there wasn't one town that I went to where they said, oh, Ada's already actually been here. Every single town said the same thing. You're the first people that we've seen. And this was on day 22, day 23 while we were down there. They were just standing in line waiting for someone to show up to give them food, water, hope.
Yes.
And were you shocked that you were the first responders, Sandy?
I was absolutely amazed. You know, people grabbed us, held us, sobbed in our arms. We cried with them. Again, just having the ability to provide them with some basic necessities that we actually, Randy, amazingly, started a GoFundMe account, and it allowed us to purchase glucometer strips for blood sugars. People were, their sugars were even unreadable when we took them. People who had such high blood pressures, suffering from hypertension, out of their medications, just complete desperation, and so much gratitude that they weren't forgotten by us.
And Randy, why was it so important to you to go on this mission?
I live in Northern California, And I think it's only a matter of time before a disaster hits our area. I mean, while we were down there, we lost 2 of our nurses. They had to fly back because their homes were destroyed in the Santa Rosa fires. So it happens everywhere around the world. And it's our job to respond to those areas that are in need, because one day it's going to happen to us. And we're just going to hope and pray that people showed up like we showed up for them. I mean, to wait 25 days in the heat and in the pouring down rain and just hoping for a shrivel of food or water, I can't even imagine what that feels like.
Oh, yeah. We encountered couples in their 80s that were living in homes filled with black mold, no roofs, no size of the house, no food, no water. And to be a U.S. citizen and know these are my fellow citizens, and they had nowhere to go. Some were even told by FEMA, don't touch anything, live in this condition, because if you move anything, then you might not get reimbursed and we won't be able to help you.
And speaking of FEMA, Randy, did you see a lot of FEMA workers when you were there?
I hate to even say this, but in the 2 weeks that I went into 2 to 3 towns a day, my 2 groups personally never saw FEMA in one town.
Never?
Not once.
And what did you think of that?
I couldn't wrap my mind around the disorganization and chaos that was happening. I still to this day can't understand why the aid wasn't there when they were saying that it was there. Why were these people not receiving aid? If we wouldn't have started that GoFundMe account, it is, I think, up to $55,000 now. That was the money that we were using to get food, to get water to these people, to get medications. If we wouldn't have started that fund, I don't know how we would have accessed as many communities as we did.
Yes.
So,
well, we did contact FEMA, and they gave us this statement about their recovery efforts in Puerto Rico, essentially saying the overall federal effort following Hurricane Maria has included the largest medical response mission ever. They said more than 4,700 medical personnel have treated more than 30,000 patients so far. They have also provided temporary power to the island's hospitals.
That was KQED's Thuy Vu speaking with the Registered Nurse Response Network. For more information about their relief work, go to kqed.org. The California NAACP is pushing to remove the Star Spangled Banner as the U.S. national anthem. The organization's state president says the full lyrics of the anthem are pro-slavery and anti-black. A lesser-known third verse reads, "No refuge could save the hireling enslaved."
We don't sing it. They didn't remove it. You can't sing an anthem, by the way, without singing the whole song. So we've been remiss not to look at the entire song. And I must tell you, I was just as blind as everybody else, because until Kaepernick took his knee, none of us looked at the national. We just sung it rotely. We were taught to sing the first stanza, and that was that.
And it's not even part of the song that we currently sing today. So all of this is really much ado about nothing. This is trying to take a current political fight and trying to broadcast on our national stage and divide Americans against their flag, against their country, and yes, against their national anthem.
The NAACP says it will lobby state lawmakers to pass a resolution that urges Congress to take action. Student leaders at San Diego State University want to get rid of the school's mascot and possibly the Aztec nickname itself. The Student Senate has approved a resolution seeking to retire the Aztec warrior mascot often seen at sporting events. The resolution also creates a task force to debate if the Aztec nickname should continue to be used. The university's president will be advised of the resolution but is not required to take any formal action. At one college football stadium, a new tradition is lifting spirits for families dealing with serious health issues. Marina Hutchinson shows us how the Iowa Hawkeyes are redefining the wave.
The wave is college football's sweetest new tradition, a gesture that goes beyond the stadium.
When he's in the hospital, we have great care, but it's out of his normal for, not able to play and do everything he wants to do. So when I told him we had tickets to come up here, he was quite excited.
Right before every home Hawkeye football game, kids get front row seats but from the perch of the University of Iowa Children's Hospital across the street.
I am here with my son Ethan, who is being treated here at the U of I for acute lymphoblastic leukemia.
A chance to be part of the game that sickness and injury would otherwise prevent.
The kids are all going to actually get waving hands that they're going to be able to wave along with their hands at everybody in the stadium.
The pediatric hospital opened in 2016, overlooking Kinnick Stadium. When a local fan suggested the idea of a wave, it gained traction after a post on the Iowa football message board encouraged the crowd to wave in unison to the kids in the hospital at the end of the first quarter.
All the people waving just made me realize that I'm just not in it alone. There's a lot of support out there.
70,000 plus people, being a parent and having a child with the conditions that he has, and having the people be out there just acknowledging. I guess the only word that comes to mind was, it was emotional.
It gave me chills just seeing all the people turn around and acknowledge all the kids up here.
For 4-year-old Sam Davidson, who's been at the hospital for several months, the wave has been a welcome distraction.
What'd you think?
Good.
It was good, he said. I think he enjoyed it, though. He was quite excited leading up to it, and just to see everyone turn around and look at him.
A magical moment letting kids and their families forget for a little while where they are. Marina Hutchinson, The Associated Press.
Now here's a look at what we're working on for tomorrow in the KPBS newsroom. On Morning Edition, get ready to sing your hearts out. We'll show you the results of the 51st annual CMA Awards. And on Midday Edition, the Guardian of the Seas. Watch how aircraft carriers and their striker groups operate in the new IMAX film. That's tomorrow on KPBS Radio. You can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org/evening edition. Thanks for joining us. Have a great night.